Nintendo has been rejected in the patent office in Japan specifically. The EA staff are struggling with integrating with the AI that the management is forcing them to use or heavily advising. And McDonald's Japan gives up straws. That is what we're going to be talking about today. My name is the Techno Jelly. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do these videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now let's get right into the video. Nintendo has a couple of patents that they've been using against Pocketpair or Palworld specifically, and the first one of them, I should not say first, one of them has been rejected in Japan specifically, which is a big deal because this lawsuit mostly is in Japan. There are a few things that are in the US, but that's mostly the patent stuff of trying to apply for the patents. But the lawsuit itself is in Japan, and the patent examiner in Japan of the patent office, or the JPO, has made a decision of rejecting it on a non-final basis. And what that means mostly is that the JPO, or the Japan Patent Office, doesn't have any jurisdiction over the actual lawsuit itself. It just has the power over the actual patent, and it's rejected it on a non-final basis because of third-party submissions of prior art and a lack or claimed technique lack of innovative step, which is what they were trying to do because Nintendo was trying to claim that they owned the concept of monster capture. Now, this is one of 3 patents Nintendo has claimed or filed, sorry. So this is a step 1, unfortunately. This is like nowhere near the final step for Palworld against Nintendo, but it's a really good step. And I think some of the really funny things is that, because we've talked about these patents and all that stuff before, some of the video games that the JPO, or the Japan Patent Office, references are the things we've talked about. For instance, the prior art, which means in this term the prior video games, are Ark, Capcom's Monster Hunter 4, Pocketpair's Craftopia, a Japanese browser game named Katana Collection, and even Pokemon Go. Because Pokemon Go wasn't made by Nintendo, it was made by, oh gosh, I can't remember their name now, but it was a third-party company that Nintendo licensed the Pokemon property IP to. So, like, even Nintendo's own IP in Pokemon is being used against them, which is hilarious. And we've already all said that. Like, there's so many games prior to Pokemon that do this. Now, in terms of the direct impact to the actual patent itself, Nintendo, it is a non-final decision. So Nintendo can choose to pursue again, basically. They can appeal the decision, or they could abandon it, but I don't see them abandoning it. The more likely option they choose is to amend the claims or modify the patent to try to change the application so the claims don't affect it anymore. And even the legal experts, which I'm getting this from, or maybe not experts, but GamesFry, who have been doing a very good in-depth thing where I've been getting most of the stuff from, they even describe the patent process in Japan as an endless loop, because even if they get through the modified patent application, they do the amend claims, when the patent office is done with it and they still reject it, they can still appeal in a court that's called an Intellectual Property High Court, or IPHC. So like they could just appeal again in a different section. So it seems like no matter what, it's still going to go on, but the patent problems could be a thing in court because the patent is one of the main things in the court case, but it's not a direct problem or influence on the case because it is one of 3 patents that they've been using. Because it is one of 3, I'm pretty sure, from what I understand, patents that Nintendo has filed suit in the patent suits against Palworld. So even though this is non-finally and it's still in the process of being rejected and like there's still tons of things Nintendo can do, having one of the patents in the family of patents being in this problem usually posts a snowball effect on the other patents of their validity and if they are truly what they are. If you understand what I'm trying to say here, basically having one patent in a group of other patents be rejected means it is more likely that the other patents are also going to be rejected, or something similar in a legal sense. And even though the JPO decision isn't a final decision and it is not a decision that, a judge has to comply with. It is something that Pocketpair or Palworld, they're basically the same thing. I keep interlocking them. I'm sorry. They could turn to that decision because the judges of the Japan courts, just like in most courts, can look at the opinions of experts or people trained in that area. And the JPO is trained to look at the patents, right? And if they say, hey, this is a not good one, we're going to reject this because of these reasons, the judge can look at that and say, well, if they say that and they're the experts and they're the trained examiners, the judge can go with their decision. They're not binded by those decisions by all means. They could go against the decisions of the JPO. I'm not saying they couldn't, but it is unlikely that they would. And it can definitely be a huge influence, like I was saying, in the decision for the judge, in the case of Nintendo versus Pocketpair, because these patents are the base and foundation of their case. And if they're in question, that is a really good statement that Pocketpair can make. And with the fact that even in their own defense that we saw, I feel like a couple months ago, maybe it was a month ago, they even named some of the games that the JPO listed, I'm pretty sure, because I remember them listing their own game, Craftopia Arc, and I don't think they specifically named Monster Hunter 4, but they named one of the Capcom games as well as being like, this is prior art for monster capturing before Nintendo's claim. So it should be a reassuring statement that at least Pocketpair and this specific JPO person agrees. Unfortunately, a lot of things Nintendo can do, and it's not binding, so there's still a lot of things to do, but it's a really good first step, and I think it's a really good high first step too. Like it's a big first step, not a small first step, because Nintendo was already in like weird situations because they had to, or they felt they needed to modify one of the other patents to talk about the mods of it, and like how mods don't count because of the prior art example stuff, and them doing the stuff in the US itself. So if the stuff in Japan fails, they could try to sue / make a case in the US as well. So they already feel like they need to do more things, because once again, I've said this in basically every video, but I feel like it needs to be said. These cases are most likely trying to be extended so Pocketpair runs out of money, not necessarily so Nintendo can win, or so they can try to settle out of court instead of have the court actually decide, because Nintendo can keep doing this forever. Like their coffers are infinite, and Pocketpairs, while big, are not infinite. So it's going to be interesting to see if Pocketpair can try to force a decision, because from what we can tell, the courts of multiple kinds, not just the judges, but also the JPO and even in the US courts, while it's not nearly as a slam dunk because there is some other things happening in the US, it seems that they agree with Pocketpair that this is not valid. The patents aren't as valid, and the JPO specifically are like, hey dudes, there's games way before this that have done these things. You do not own this. You did not invent this concept. So it's looking good for Pocketpair, but once again, I'm still worried about like the how long can they keep doing this. Luckily, people keep buying Palworld, and they're even publishing games now, so hopefully they're getting something for that as well. So hopefully they can keep doing this, because I think the worst case scenario is Nintendo wins this, and that is a terrible circumstance for the whole video game world in general. Just every video game in existence would hate Nintendo winning this. So let me know what you guys think about in the comments down below, what you guys think about this whole situation with the new updates on this Palworld versus Nintendo, or actually it's Nintendo versus Palworld because Nintendo were the ones that brought it up. Let me know what you guys think about in the comments, if you agree, if you disagree, if you think this is dumb or not. You obviously heard what I think personally, because I think this is crazy, and I'm glad that the JPO is in agreement. I'm sad that it's not a non-final decision, so there's still a lot of stuff you can do, or Nintendo can do specifically, but hey, at this point, at least things are moving forward and it's not stalling as much. Moving on to EA staff specifically, because they are having a lot of trouble dealing with the management of EA specifically. Now, I'll have to say, staff members having problems with management is not a new thing. Let's be real here. The bigger problem is that management is demanding they use AI for things. For not just for things, honestly, it's for everything apparently. being reported by VGC, and they got people anonymously, to be fair, to talk about this. And the staff members are saying that they've been encouraged to use AI for basically all tasks to increase productivity. While inherently I don't disagree with that, the problem is that the AI they're talking about is generative AI. So things like code, making code and concept art, or trying to get managers to use ChatGPT for things if they get rejected for something, or workers or staff members to phrase questions different if it was denied. Which the latter stuff is okay, you know, rephrasing things if it gets denied, having a second opinion, sure. The generative code and the generative art for concept art, I just think is a bad idea because the art is bad and the code is bad, and they've even talked about it. The staff members say that they have to spend a lot of time correcting the code that the programs use because they're just wrong and it's just bad and it's creating a lot of bugs and problems. And the other side of it, the creative teams are expected to train this AI art software so they don't have jobs anymore, which is a very odd feeling for those people, I'm sure. And then there's a bunch of people who were working in QA who don't have jobs anymore because apparently they're using AI to summarize feedback from players instead, or the testers, instead of his job, which is weird because I feel like, how are they doing that? Are they getting, I assume they must be getting the QAs to write down what they're doing, or maybe the AI is watching them. I'm not entirely sure what it means by that because aren't the QAs themselves summarizing what their feedback anyway? I guess it depends on how they do it, but that's what I always thought QAs did. They applied the things and then wrote a report or something similar to that. So they're summarizing the report, I guess, because the higher ups don't want to read the whole thing, which makes sense. They don't necessarily need to know. They need to know the bullet points. Interesting. But it seems like it's not increasing workflow. It's actually taking longer because humans constantly have to correct the things that the AI things are doing, which is a big problem. I think the biggest one is the coding one because it produces bad code. So it has to be manually corrected, which means it takes more time. Like the whole thing of productivity isn't going to work if you constantly have to correct the AI, which is why I think generative AI is not good for the video game industry. AI in general can do good things, but like the generative creative stuff needs to be done by humans. And some of the things that we have seen from these, I guess, either leaks or insiders, I guess it depends on what you categorize these people as. A bunch of the EA employees have to go through training courses to use AI tools to speed up their work rate. And some of the wording is really weird. Some of the things say treat it like a thought partner for the phrase questions about the promotion being denied. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's one of those things where that is fine as long as it's not the only thing you're using. The problem with these techniques or these things that I have with is that a lot of these companies, and I will use EA as an example, aren't using them as another tool in the toolbox. They are replacing all the tools with this one tool, and that's the problem, because if AI was just another tool, it'd be really good, except for the generative stuff. I do have to have a hard stance on that. But yeah, sure, saying putting into a prompter or whatever, like a ChatGPT like system of being like, this is what I said, it was denied, how can I say this in a different way? That isn't a bad thing, as long as you're not just copy pasting that. You have to put your own spin on it. It's a more of an idea filter and what are those sheets called? A web, those web graphs that you used to make in middle to high school. I mean, I guess that you still don't use them in higher education as well, but those web maps, it should be one of those bubbles along with the other bubbles as well. So I feel like it's one of those things where they're trying to force it into something that is not actually going to be using for work productivity. They just think it's going to be because it's the buzzword right now. Because I think generative AI is actually slowing things down because they're firing people to use it, and the people that have to use it have to constantly correct it. And then the artists or the creative teams that are using it don't want to use it because they're supposed to train it, and that's gonna replace them. In the minds of those managers, they want to replace those people that are training it, which is such a backwards thing. It's if I was an artist, I would not be doing that. I understand a job is a job, and sometimes you just need to make money. I get that, but am I gonna be working my hardest to train something to replace me? I personally would not, but I don't know about those people. It's a very odd situation to be put in, and this is a feeling of, I feel like we're gonna start needing more filters for stores because some people don't want to buy games that use AI, and now there is a huge need need to filter out those games that people don't want to use it because they don't want to support it. Now, Steam does have that. I don't think any other ones that I've seen don't have that. Steam is really the only one that I see that does. But it's going to be interesting because now we need to have two different filters. One for generative AI and one for AI without generative stuff. Because like I said, non-generative AI tools are really useful. Like the things like in Photoshop, like the magic marker stuff or the magic pen in Photoshop and stuff like that's technically AI. Or like there's a lot of things that use AI that are useful, but it's the generative creative AI that sucks and is stupid and needs to be not used because it is literally slowing down workers, which is the whole point. The whole point is to increase productivity, and I get that, and I understand that as a person that looks at the pure business side of it, and increased productivity is always a good thing. But when the increased productivity is at the cost of it slowing down overall, and you technically save money, but when you're working in the creative industry, if something costs less to make but sells less, you're making less money. And if something costs slightly more to make but sells more, then you're technically making money. Now, obviously that's a very simplified view on it, but like that's the way I see it. It feels like they aren't actually saving any money because if you're not selling as many video games, then it doesn't matter. Because that's the whole thing. You need to sell more video games. And especially for EA, because EA, like, I mean, they just released Battlefield 6, but like not the FIFA games because they don't own the FIFA license anymore. The FC sports games didn't do as well as they normally did. The sports games, all of EA's sports games are kind of on the down low, and it feels like EA is in this weird thing where all of their stuff is failing or going lower. Saying it's failing is a little hyperbolic, I'll admit, but it doesn't seem that their let's use AI is helping at all, because it's just not. The most recent game of Battlefield 6 is being successful because it's Battlefield 6 and being made with people who care about Battlefield, not because they used AI. And I don't even know if they did. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, but I don't think they used it enough to affect the project. Like, I wouldn't surprise me if they used it for helping with data management and stuff like that, but like it feels like a backward system, and I hope that companies eventually snap out of it and realize that just make better products. But unfortunately in the video game industry that is unlikely because everyone is just drunk out of their mind on AI. And unfortunately for the AAA scene specifically, I think we're gonna have to retreat to the indie game scene and the AA scene for at least a couple years, because holy cow, does the AAAs are just like spiraling out of control with all this AI nonsense. Except for Japan, mostly. Like, I mean, Nintendo doesn't really care about AI in that way. Capcom doesn't really, like, they do a little bit, but it's not really the generative stuff. It seems like at least outside of the US, it's mostly the tools that are being used, not necessarily generative. Generative AI definitely seems like a US thing that everyone's really piling onto. And outside of that, while there still is some, don't get me wrong, it's mostly with the tools they're talking about and not the generative side. So who knows? Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments down below. If you've had to deal with people trying to force you to use AI, I'd love to know that as well. Luckily for me personally, I don't have to use AI. I mean, I guess when I make the thumbnails and I use the magic pen thing to delete stuff, is that AI? I think that is technically AI. The problem is AI is such a broad term now that it's hard to tell. I don't know, maybe. But let me know down in the comments down below. Lastly, McDonald's Japan has said no to paper straws, and they've just redesigned the cup, which I think is a really good idea because not a lot of people like straws, and there's also a huge divide between plastic and paper straws. So what they've done is they've just changed the cup, and it's just a drinking lid now, which they already used for coffee. I've already seen McDonald's coffee use these styles of lids before, so it makes sense. The new lids are also made from recycled plastic, which is great, and it's just a makes sense thing. And I'm surprised that McDonald's haven't already done this, because as I was reading this story from Dexerto, I was like, oh yeah, like McDonald's, like McCafe does this already. Like, why didn't they just do it for all the drinks? You could argue that maybe because of the ice it might get blocked or something like that, but like most people don't want a crazy amount of ice anyway, so like put less ice, most people would be happier anyway. I guess there's an argument that if you use less ice then you have to use more drink, but like they're reducing spills for the lids themselves. They don't have to constantly make straws, and it's interesting to see that this is the option and it hasn't happened sooner, because people hate paper straws. And like the whole thing of using less plastic I agree with, but the problem is that the straw is the least plasticky thing. Like, it was a menace for a lot of animals, unfortunately, but like there's so much plastic in it. Like, I mean, the paper straws were sometimes in plastic wrapping, so like it made no sense. It made zero sense. And it's just like, guys, we have cups that have drinking lids. Why are we still using straws? straws. Most people don't even care about straws. I don't see a lot of people a lot of people that I see just throw the straw out. So like, why are we even using the straws? Just use the drinking lid. Like, they've been invented for a long time. Why are we still like clinging on to straws? It probably costs more than the lids itself, and you can put the whole like slap it on like the, you know, now without straws, reduce spills, and using 95% recycled plastic, and everyone's happy. Well, okay, most people are happy, but like, it's odd to me that not everyone is just doing this, and why everyone's so clinging on straws. I wonder if there's a straws lobby somewhere. There probably is, honestly, because like, everyone does it for coffee and tea in McCafe. Why don't do it for other drinks? It makes sense. Like, as I said, as I was reading this, like, wait a minute, why haven't we done this years ago? Like, why did we even bother with paper straws? Just get rid of them. And it's very logical to me, and now that like it actually has happened, I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. So I hope other companies and McDonald's worldwide starts doing this, because I think it's just a better idea, and it'll be so much easier in so many ways. Let me know what you guys think about in the comments down below, what you guys think about this. If you agree, if you disagree, let me know. That is going to be the last thing we talk about today. Everyone, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike button if you disliked it. I completely understand. Once again, go to the comments down below, and if you have any comments on any 3 of these topics that we've talked about today, I'd love to know your opinions on them, and we can have a chat down in there. If you would like to support me directly, please go over to the Patreon at patreon.com/thetechnojelly. You can join all of these nice people going across the screen right now. You get access to a once in a month stream, as well as some other nice perks. If you'd like to follow me on other platforms, I have a Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads, all at the Technojelly. Thank you again, once again, for watching, and I'll see you again on Monday. Goodbye, everyone.